Hey gang. All right. So what we're going to work on this week is starting to do a deep dig in with Reaper and surround with Reaper, and specifically how we're going to do surround workflow working on headphones. I did a little bit of digging and started working with Reaper. I mean, I'm new to Reaper right now as well, but as you saw from some other talks and discussions, I've quickly become a super fan. I think it's fairly utilitarian. It's not as sexy under the hood as maybe some of the other DAWs that we work with. It's not maybe quite as refined, but $60, dude, it's amazing what you can pull off with this stuff. And specifically, you can look at the signal routing in here. And so that's what we need to focus on for a little bit today. So the aim for this week is again to do a deep dig into Reaper and how the signal flow and surround workflow works with Reaper, and more specifically, how do we do surround workflow using headphones without using a full 5.1 or 7.1 or Atmos or whatever kind of setup that we have. So we're going to look at it a couple different things starting off. We're going to look at first just the generic signal flow in doing 5.1, for instance, signal flow with Reaper. Then we're going to add on how to do it binaurally. And then we're going to look at the Facebook 360, or what they call FB360 audio workstation suite. And so we can start working on our signal flow for doing spatial stuff. And then we probably won't get to it today. We'll do that for the next class, is looking at the delivery format for that. And then we're going to do some work based off of that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So let me pull up Reaper and let's just check it out. All right, first thing I need to check is, okay, so for me, in my studio right here that I'm sitting in right now, this is my mastering room. I have a Motu A28ES. This is my normal actual output hardware that I use. That's my real, like my audio interface that I would use. But because I need to capture the audio going to that, I need to use this thing called Telestream, which is the screen capture software, so I can capture the audio with this. So it's a little funky. It's a little bit of it's a weird way of working. Normally, it's an extra layer of routing that I have to do on my end, but you shouldn't have to do that. So normally, you'll just pick your audio interface. You could do built-in output if you're working on a laptop and you're not using an interface. I would always recommend you use an interface even if you're just working on a laptop, but whatever works for you. So I'm gonna leave that as Telestream. Say okay. And let's just get this thing going and let's make some noise. So I'm just dragging in just a quick little drum loop right here. So this is just what I'm going to use. You can use any kind of material that you want. And let me throw my headphones on. Just throw one headphone in so I can see that it's indeed working. Cool. All right. So what we know about the Reaper signal flow at this point is that we have this little green arrow shows that this is being sent to the master, and yeah, so if we look up here, we're seeing master send. Now, even though like as if you'd gone through any of those Groove 3 videos, a track is a track is a track. It doesn't matter how many tracks it has on it. It doesn't matter if it's MIDI, if it's audio, if it's video track, or anything in between. A track is a track. But what we want to do is we need to make sure that this is going to be a surround track. So even though it's a stereo source, what we want to do is we want to turn this into a 5.1. So we're going to turn this into a 5.1 pattern and look at how to listen to this thing in real time. So the first thing I want to do is look at my routing in here, and in this track for track 1, 2. Actually, the first thing I want to do is let's go to my master. So let's take a look at my master routing. And my master routing has track channels. I actually want that to be up to 6. So if I was doing 5.1, it's going to be 6. If I'm doing 7.1, it's going to be up to 8. So we'll just call it 6 for right now. Let's do a standard 5.1 mix. And on here, basically, I'm going to say 6 channels as the output because I want to be able to go. So source means how. It's weird the way Reaper works is kind of backwards. But basically, multi-channel source. I'm gonna do 6 channels 1 through 6 right here. So that's gonna send out to my hardware of channels 1 through 6. Cool. I think that's looking pretty good. Let's call it there. And so we can see that now over in my master fader over here that I'm only using the first 2 tracks of the 6 wide that I have available to me. So I'm gonna turn it down. It's pretty ripping loud in my headphones. Okay. Let's turn it down a couple notches just to make things tolerable. Cool. Okay, so now what we want to do is now we have our master fader in working in surround. We want our we want to work upstream and we want to set this track to be surround. So to do that, what we need to do is we want to set this one to be like the parent channels doesn't really matter. That means the incoming, but what we care about is the 6 channels right here. So now this is a 6 channels wide track. Even though it's playing 2, what it's going to do is by default, it's going to play this one out of 1 and this one out of 2. and that's fine for our purposes right now. There may be some other cases, and as I'm just getting used to this, I'm trying to figure out, like, fringe cases on how to pull this thing off, but or what, not pull this off, but where this may run into some issues and some problems. But I think this is going to be good for now. At least this is what we want to do. We're not going to use sends. And again, it's weird when you look around. If you do look on like YouTube for using surround with Reaper, people, for whatever reason, they tend to not use the master send, and they do discrete hardware sends. And I don't know, I just don't like that. I think this works for me, and that's not the way that I like to work. I like to use a traditional workflow where you have buses and master, and maybe this didn't work in the old Reaper version the way that worked, but maybe you couldn't do more than stereo in the old Reaper, or I don't know. But for whatever reason, people tend to, at least looking around on YouTube, they tend to not use the master send when they're doing the surround stuff, and they go directly to the hardware outputs. But I don't think that's a good way to do this. So I'm going to leave a master send there, but because master is expecting 6 channels, I can send it 6 channels. We're good to go. So at this point, again, if I just, even though we're 6 channels wide and press play, it's still only going to be sending the first 2 channels. We can see that I've got 6 tracks wide right here, but I'm only using the first 2 channels. And the same thing here, which of course corresponds to left and right. So let's add a surround panner in there and see how this thing works. So the surround panner that comes with this is strange. So if we go to categories down here, we have the surround right here. It's called Resurround, Reaper Surround. And this is the panner right here. And it just looks strange out of the gates. I encourage you to spend a fair amount of time poking around with this thing. I remember a couple students used this last year in surround, and I just hated it. And to be honest, I've been playing around with it for a few hours, and I still hate it. I think this is a terrible surround panner, but it's the way it is. It works. It's free. So let's stick with what we've got here. So input channels, that means that's the input. We don't really care about that one. But on our output, we want to go to 5.1 surround. So we have a couple different options here. So we can go either 5.1 or ITU 5.1. And this one looks a little bit closer to what we're used to seeing right here. But let's go back to this one right here and just talk about this for a minute, what we see here. Actually, let's just even go back to stereo. And what we're looking at here is these hemispheres right here, these circles right here. And if I zoom out, where's the zoom out? There it is. So if I zoom out, these circles represent amplitude. So the closer I get to this source, it's going to get louder, and the farther I get, it's going to get quieter. So if I move this thing around, it's going to be, so this one gets loud in the right channel all the way around there. So what these are is essentially like thresholds, or like, I guess distance curves. Like if you're in the game class, these are like those distance curves on how far away you are with something. But what's strange to me is there's not much overlap. And so if I press play, I'm just going to go down to 1 channel. Actually, even still, I'm just going to get rid of this one altogether. So if I say input channels 1, so I'm just going to keep it simple and just go with a single one. So it's only going to be listening to the left channel. Just, again, to try and keep things a little more simple. So if I press play, we can see that it's only coming out of the left channel. Goes away, and now it's coming in on the right channel. So what it's essentially doing is it's putting speakers left and right. And so I think this is, so if I go outside of the circle, it's completely gone. So I just think that's strange. Let's see. I haven't played with a lot of these yet. Not rotate, but diffusion level. No. What I want to do is increase the size of these so that I see some overlap. Because to me, what it should be is that there should be, if in terms of stereo, do they do ITU stereo? No. It's just user setup. I can decide what I want it to be on my own. It's strange to me that this is a surround. Well, this is the surround panel using it in stereo, so it doesn't really work very well. So if we go to 5.1, what we see here is we have our front speaker here, and then we have our 2 surrounds right here. But once again, if I go between this, it creates a void. So it creates no sound because of these don't have any overlap right there. So I feel like this is just a strange way to do it. I don't really like this panning algorithm, so to speak. It does work, but let's move this thing around. We can see. So if I want to go back left, it's going to be coming back. Indeed, it's coming back left, right? We can watch it. And so if I pan right here, I'd get, if I move to the outside of this thing, I'm going to get a smooth pan as it moves around, but it's just weird. I don't know. I don't really like it. And the thing is, if we go to the ITU one, we get the same thing. So in this case, if I pan back here, it vanishes. I get nothing. So I feel like these circles need to be bigger or needs to change their shape a little bit or something. I don't know. It's a weird panner, but it's what we've got. So I'm going to stick just with this 5.11 for right now. I'm going to zoom back to this so it just looks like this. And I just want to work with this system right here. So all right. And I'm not going to go through all these other things right here, but at this point, you actually have a 5.1 setup going. If you want to start automating this thing, the automation in Reaper is, well, it's actually straightforward for normal stuff. But when we added this surround panner in there, this is all the stuff you need to add. And I got to tell you, I was struggling trying to figure out what I need to arm and what I need to listen to and have this thing work. It's very strange. So like front left gain, like front left XYZ. Yeah. So right now, because I only have I do have front, right, and left. So I would do something like if I wanted to record my stuff, I would do this one right here, record right, left, X, Y, and Z. And here's the front right, X, Y, and Z. I guess we're not doing Z, so we don't really need to go up. So let's turn that one off. We're not doing 3D yet. We're just doing 2D in a two-dimensional 5.1 plane. So if we wanted to, we could go through and record these ones right here. But, well, I haven't really even played with it because I was like just kind of bummed. Yeah, I don't think these correspond to the position. These correspond to gains. Don't love it. So I'm just going to say screw it for now. If you want to spend the time on it and dig into this thing, go for it. But I'm pretty unhappy with this whole thing. But at this point, we have a 5.1 tracks and we can record automation. We can make stuff, do stuff. We can work with mono track. We can work with multi tracks, but and we have a 5.1 system and we could bounce out 5.1 at this point. So really, if you just want to set up a quick and simple 5.1 and you just want to do static positions and panning, this will work for you. So I'm going to call it there. What I want you to do is try and just get a loop going and try and do exactly what I did. The important thing is matching up your routing with your 6 channels to 6 channels, and then adding the either 5.1 or 7.1 panner in there and experiment. Make sure that you can see it passing the surround information around there. Cool.